When I first started using saunas, there was really no good information online. Everyone would say this and say that, but ultimately it cost me time, money, and months and months and months of spinning my wheels researching, but not actually doing anything. If you're a brand new sauna owner, or if you're looking to find the perfect sauna for you for the first time, this is the stuff in this video that would have saved me a tremendous amount of frustration. I've tested over 40 sauna models over the last 6-7 years, and I've watched thousands of new sauna owners make the same exact avoidable mistakes. This is the exact shortcut that I wish I had from day one. Sorry, but it's 35 degrees here in Florida this morning, and we're Floridians, and we're not used to this. So we're improvising, to say the least. Part number one. So part number one is no one prepares you for how people's bodies react to heat therapy. And infrared, if you're lucky enough to try that first before you do traditional, a lot of people try traditional and they never get back to using sauna because it makes the lungs work pretty hard if you've got superheated air that's 200 degrees and you're not used to any humidity, or if it's a dry sauna, it can feel scratchy on the throat or this, that, and the other. But even if it's an infrared sauna and you do the low and slow approach and you're not overdoing it, there's still a heat adaptation phase. Now, a lot of people are saying that infrared saunas don't work, but a lot of those people just aren't in good infrared saunas that have a decent heater layout that initiates a hyperthermic response from the body in like an effective, time frame. When you do experience that, no one talks about the things that are normal, in the beginning. Some people don't sweat at all. Their body's not used to sweating. I could put them in the best sauna in the world and they're still struggling. So their perception is that something is necessarily wrong. Not always the case. Obviously, we have, hundreds of videos on the channel that go through what you should do if that's the case. Make sure that you're hydrated, make sure you don't have any other health conditions that are contributing to that, and then work through the heat adaptation phase. On the flip side of that, some people experience too much intensity and they're wiped out. It just means that their nervous system is tapped. It's kind of like, I use the example all the time, if you did high rep or high weight burn down squats, which is your max reps or your max weight, and you did that multiple times a week, you get to the end of the week and you're not going to have the ability to recover. Your nervous system is going to be zapped. You're not getting enough sleep for the muscle recovery, so on and so forth. Heat adaptation can go the same way for some folks, especially if you have health challenges. So don't be alarmed when this happens. It's normal for this to be a slow progression over a period of weeks or months. Next to that is you guys got to stop chasing numbers on a control panel. I'm picturing myself in the sauna right now. We get the little screen up there. But no one's talking to you about how you can sweat better in a sauna at 140 than 165. Go watch my other videos. Go look at the FLIR footage. There's something to the heater layout thing we've been harping on for so long. So measuring temperature, air temperature in a sauna with a probe and having an output on a screen is one thing. Having your body experience enough far infrared coverage to initiate a hyperthermic response regardless of temperature. Why do you think when we do these assembly videos and the sauna is on, and the door is open, and we've got tripods hanging inside of them to film these videos, I've got a shirt on, I'm still sweating. Obviously, I'm not sweating profusely like an actual sauna session, but I'm not sitting down in there for more than 3 or 4 minutes. What's happening? Well, there's enough heat coverage in that sauna to give my body the ability to initiate hyperthermic response, even with the door open, even with, filming and doing all this stuff. We're not trying to sweat. If anything, I get upset. I'm like, turn that damn thing off so that we can finish the videos without me being uncomfortable. That's the difference between a number on a control panel and actually feeling something that delivers enough heat therapy directed at the body, enough heat energy, basically. There's a bunch of different ways we could say this, but every time I use scientific terms, it just gets lost in the weeds. So let's just keep it simple. Just because a temperature reading, this is not a traditional sauna where you're in an 8x8 room and the sauna heater is 6 feet away from you and you're waiting for the air to heat up around you in order for you to experience a sauna session. That's not how this works. There's some convection present in the sauna, yes, but you also have radiant heat hitting the tissues. So think about that next time you think that temperature is everything. Next on the list is sweat management. You guys that I see sweating all over the wood, I think you guys are nuts, like really nuts. If you take a look at any pictures of people that have owned their sauna for more than 2 years, those that don't sit on towels or protect the wood and just let their bodies sweat all over the wood, You got to understand, especially in an infrared sauna, you're getting a sebaceous gland sweat. So you have oily sweat. This is not like you went for a walk and you have a little sweat on your back. So when you let that sweat into the wood grain with no kind of like care in the world, it's going to get nasty. Not only is it going to deteriorate the sauna, but it's also, I think there's a cleanliness or a hygienic component here that is just not in your favor. So I would urge you to do the towel method that we use. You sit on towels, you got a towel on the floor underneath your feet. Basically anywhere that anywhere that sweat can drip off your body, you have a towel there to sop it up. If some of it leaks through the towel and just leaves like a small little wet spot on the bench, no big deal. That's very different because it's capturing the oils that are in your sweat. So some moisture comes through the towel and stuff. That's not nearly as bad as you just dripping sweat directly on the wood. I definitely do not recommend that. I still see people doing it after they watch the tutorials and the videos that go through how we do towel layouts in the sauna. I know it's some extra laundry, but man, it'll save your sauna and it'll also be a lot cleaner for you. And that leads us right into the next point, which is cleaning your sauna. If you do this part wrong, you can ruin a $5,000 piece of machinery here forever. So you shouldn't put harsh chemicals on untreated wood. The whole point of saunas being non-toxic and not having volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, is the fact that there's no varnish on the interior of the sauna, because if there was, you'd be heating that up and breathing it in. You want to make sure that you're not putting chemicals on the wood or cleaners that are going to absorb into the grain of the wood and stay there. So I don't like the idea of people using any type of commercial cleaners to wipe down their sauna. You could use a damp cloth. You could use some of that vinegar or lemon solution or whatever it's called that people make that's non-toxic homemade cleaner. But I don't think you really need that. If you pay attention to your towel management, I know it's extra laundry, there's not a lot to clean. You clean the glass every once in a while. You use a vacuum, and notoriously for women, it's going to be their hair that builds up in the corners. Same thing for guys. Like, I'm a hairy guy, so my body hair and stuff, ends up on the floor in the corners and stuff just from me walking in and out. You can very easily just vacuum that right out. There's no reason to take, harsh cleaners to this and then leave a film on there for the next time you use your sauna session. So really consider getting color-coded towels. So they're different colors than your actual bath towels. That way these are sauna towels and you don't wash them together. You wash them separately. So any of the smells and stuff from your sweat don't get into your bath towels. That would be my number one recommendation for cleaning, is to not be worried about cleaning at all, is to take care of it before it gets to the point where you need to clean it. So next on the list is hydration. There's two camps here. Usually it's hard, everyone's in the middle sometimes, but usually the extremes that cause problems are people are not mindful of their hydration at all, and then they start using sauna, and they're not used to doing regular workouts or sweating, and they're not remineralizing, they're not rehydrating. And your mineral ratios are off. You have vitamin deficiencies. You're not taking, magnesium, potassium, and things that you're going to be sweating out, in great concentration. For the flip side, some people are overdoing this. They're taking 2 or 3 liquid IV packets a day, and they're only using sauna 2 or 3 days a week. In my judgment, unless you need that much, you're kind of overdoing it at the same time. This can lead to things like loose stool. It can lead to other things too, like overcompensating, people overdoing vitamins, minerals, everything else. So if you have an overabundance in one area when you don't actually need it, that's going to pull you out of balance in another area. So it's kind of like not enough is bad and too much is bad. You need to be somewhere, in the middle. So just be mindful of where are you personally. If you're a person that never pays attention to hydration and you're drinking alcohol, even if it's a few glasses of wine or a couple beers or whatever, and you're sweating a bunch and you're not used to that, you could have some down energy because you're just simply dehydrated, or you go through a dehydration event. And then conversely, if you're a supplement nut, like I used to be, you might go nuts and you're not paying attention and you're taking multiple supplements that have a double up or a triple up or quadruple up of the same exact ingredients, and there's too much overlap and you don't know it. So be mindful of those things, figure out where you are, and then kind of adjust for the middle. So last on the list, and this is probably one of the most critical, is people's viewpoints on binders. You see my videos, and I notice that new subscribers are in one of two camps also. They either think every single person on the planet needs to take a binder if they're using a sauna, which is not true, or they overdo it and they are taking binders indefinitely, which is also absolutely critical that you do not do that. Let's get into both. Just because you see other people taking binders, if you're just getting into sauna, it doesn't mean that you need a binder. Typically, people take binders when they experience Herxheimer reactions or they have some unpleasant symptoms as a result of sauna. Most of the time, these are people that are already health challenged or they have some type of health condition that is contributing to being able to excrete toxins, or their detox pathways are compromised in some way. And that's a complicated, overarching general way to say they have some type of downstream issue. They're not able to process something in particular. This could be a methylation issue. This could be a vitamin or a mineral deficiency. This could be simply lifestyle. So in that particular case, the idea that everyone should take a binder for that is null and void. Like, that's not necessarily a solution. You got to go through adaptation, figure out what the heck is going on with these other things. Conversely, if you do take sauna and you have some type of adverse reaction, headaches, you have some type of nausea, or you're doing this is foundationally supporting mobilization. So if you've never tried a binder before, I would encourage you to absolutely try some activated. I've got a list of them. Try one of the things on the list. Do not double them up to start with. You could start with activated charcoal, bentonite clay. I don't know if Enteros gel is reliable right now. The suppliers on those have been kind of jelly, and it's supposed to be a liquid, but it hasn't been a great consistency. So I'm questioning that. So be on the lookout for updates for those. You could do psyllium husk. Like, there's tons of ones that you can try. The point is, if you know that you have leaky gut, or you know that you have some downstream issue, when you're doing anything in your life that mobilizes, this is why I don't recommend people take chelators without using functional medicine to have a baseline, established of where they're at, because it might be wrong for you. That's how people get screwed up by doing detox protocols, and it leaves them worse off than when they started. But if you know that you need to detox stuff, or you're experiencing some herx or some bad symptoms from using sauna, you could try running a binder for just a week, week and a half, maybe 2 weeks tops, and then you quit. You do not take binders week after week after week after week on end. And that leads us to the final point of this last segment is people that are taking activated charcoal for months on end, or bentonite clay in excess amounts, it's very drying to the GI tract. Go watch some of the videos on what the point of detox binders are for, because when you have leaky gut and you're mobilizing toxins into circulation and they get reabsorbed into the bloodstream because your gut wall is permeable, the point of the detox binder is to act like a sponge and try and gobble them up right there. So that reduces that symptom or that Herxheimer reaction or that unpleasantness of that happening. And it's also helping your body reduce the body burden of whatever that chemical or compound is and help you excrete it because you're not doing it on your own. But to continue doing that indefinitely can be extremely drying to the GI tract. You can also grab onto and pull out things that are beneficial to you in excess, which then creates a different issue. So you should follow a protocol, right? We're developing a couple protocols that are very gentle that anyone can use. But you shouldn't go nuts with this stuff just because some gal online says, oh, everybody should take this supplement, or not everybody needs fulvic minerals either. You guys got to be careful of these MLM companies that sell these detox supplement kits or whatever, and they're full of basically rocks. I mean, probably too much, not right for you. Yet there's all this propaganda from these MLM networks, and the people that, albeit mean well, are really leading you down a bad rabbit hole. These are some of the most common mistakes that I see new sauna, owners making. They're easily avoidable. You just have to be armed with the right knowledge to navigate it correctly.